I'm Tommy Wilson, and this is my Elmwood. I'm Tommy Wilson. I'm a volunteer tour guide here at Elmwood. And today I'd like to take you back to April of 1865. The Civil War was finally coming to an end, but the end of the war brought on other problems. One of those was what to do with all the Union soldiers that had been imprisoned in POW camps throughout the South. Now, most of these soldiers were malnourished, they were diseased, many were crippled from their war wounds. These guys needed to get home. Well, the Union Army came up with a plan. They would gather all these soldiers at Vicksburg, Mississippi. From Vicksburg, they would be loaded onto steamboats and carried upriver. The Army agreed to pay the steamboat operators $5 for every enlisted soldier that they carried upriver, $10 for every officer that they carried upriver. Well, at the time, there was a steamboat operator named J. Cass Mason. He was in New Orleans with his boat, the Sultana. He was picking up passengers and a load of cargo there. Well, the Sultana was a fairly modern steamboat. It was licensed to carry 376 passengers, and it had a newly designed boiler system in it that was said to be very fuel efficient. Well, he left New Orleans and decided he was going to stop in Vicksburg and see if he could get in on some of this action. Well, when he got to Vicksburg, he did have to make some temporary repairs to one of the boilers, but it was deemed safe, and he was ready to load up the soldiers and head upriver. Well, the Army had placed a captain named Frederick Speed in charge of loading the soldiers onto the boat. Well, Captain Speed loaded more than 2,000 soldiers onto the Sultana. When it left Vicksburg, not only was it carrying over 2,000 soldiers, but it had 100 civilian passengers, 85 crew members, 22 guards, 300,000 pounds of sugar, 90 cases of wine, and about 100 mules and horses. Well, it left Vicksburg on April the 24th, made a brief stop in Helena, Arkansas, and arrived in Memphis on the evening of April the 26th. The sugar and the wine was offloaded. Many of the passengers got off in Memphis. And about midnight that night, the Sultana again left to head upriver. It made a quick stop in Arkansas to take on a load of coal, about, just a few miles north of Memphis. The boilers exploded, shattering the steamboat. Passengers were thrown into the water from the blast. The rest jumped into the water to escape the flames that were engulfing the boat. Hundreds of people were rescued from the water, but somewhere between 1,500 to 1,800 died, making the Sultana tragedy the worst maritime disaster in U.S. history. Many of the bodies were never recovered, including that of Captain Mason. Some bodies were found as far as 120 miles downstream. But the Sultana tragedy didn't get much publicity. Just 2 weeks earlier, Abraham Lincoln had been assassinated. The same day as the tragedy, John Wilkes Booth was captured and killed. Those were the big stories in all the papers. The Sultana kind of slipped into forgotten history, if you will. There was an inquiry made into the incident. One man went to trial. That was Frederick Speed. He was charged with neglect. He was found guilty, but was later acquitted. The ruling was that it was the explosion that caused the tragedy, not the overcrowding. Again, the Sultana was forgotten about. Buried here at Elmwood, we have two of the civilian passengers, Esther and Susan Spikes, and also one of the crew members. Any of the soldiers that would have been buried here were later moved to the National Cemetery when it opened in 1868. Again, the Sultana, worst maritime disaster in U.S. history. Just one of the many stories that we have here at Elmwood. If you want to read more about the Sultana, I would suggest a book entitled The Sultana Tragedy, written by Memphian Jerry Potter. It's available in the Elmwood bookstore. You can go online at elmwoodcemetery.org. They will gladly ship it to your doorstep. Again, thank you for watching, and this is my Elmwood.